designers need to find ways to stay relevant in time, especially, well, in moments like this.
Hello everyone, this is Mario. Welcome to another episode of Design Interviews and Questions, where we interview designers from all around the world, trying to generate and share some content about design in this moment of difficulties. And today, to help me, there is Verónica Majluf, the founder of VMN, a design studio based in Lima, Peru. So welcome, Verónica. Thanks for being here.
Hola, Mario. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Actually, I always remember to the interviewees that you're totally free to answer as you wish. We know like limits or don't, yeah.
Okay.
And if you don't mind, I would start with the first question, which is what made you become a designer?
Yeah, I think architecture took me to graphic design. I lived in a very nice house designed by a Peruvian architect called Guillermo Málaga. So since my childhood, I loved architecture, and I still love architecture, and I wanted to be one. But at some point of my life, before starting to study, I heard from a group of people that with architecture, it was going to be very, very difficult to make a living. I was probably at that time 16 years old. So after that reality shock, the first graphic design school opened in Lima. So I decided to visit them. And I remember that they asked me, when I went and asked for information, they asked me, what do you want to study? And I answered, what can I study that uses architecture tools? Because I really wanted to be an architect. So they said interior design. And I said, no, I'm not for that. I don't like that. So the next choice they gave me was graphic design. So I asked again about the architecture tools, and they said yes. So I said yes. So that's how I got to graphic design. I got there without knowing what really graphic design was all about. The funny thing at the end is that I'm the only student of my class that is still in design. So at the end of the day, I think I made a good choice. After studying in Lima, I traveled to Providence, Rhode Island. And there in RISD, I really had the best learning experience of my life. I think that those were like 3 incredible years, and where they really taught me the fundamentals of graphic design, and where I met and had the opportunity to study with great teachers. So that's my story. My story started with architecture.
Yeah, I think it's somehow common for a lot of designers that they started with architecture, actually. Also illustration, I have to say. Um, yeah, but I mean, I think in graphic design, you can find like the architecture of the information in a graphic. So I think it's quite correlated.
Yeah, there's like similarities in the sense that there's a structure, you work with a structure, you design with a structure. You have to make compositions based on that structure. You use space, no, as that structure. So perhaps those are the similarity.
And like, what is design for you? Because your first idea was to study architecture, so something different. Because also you said
Mm-hmm.
that it started like because of the architect who designed your house. So what is design for you today?
Yeah, well, design today is completely different, I think, to architecture. Finally, that's something that you realize after all those years of studying and working. For me, design is essentially the visual translation of ideas. Design is also a way of thinking. Design is asking questions. Design is finding answers. Design is communication, is connection. So I would say that design is everything at some point, no? And we live with design, no? So we're surrounded by design.
Looking at your works, I mean, you works with different type of clients, cultural, sometimes more commercial, sometimes also artistic clients. But I have the feeling that in all the works, the kind of feeling of humanity is always present. Is that what you're trying to do when you create something as a designer?
Not well. I like your point of view. I would like if like at some point you can like explain it a little bit more. I like the idea of humanity and it's relevant today, especially in these times that we're living. I'm not sure if that's something that we think when we do our work. Perhaps, yes, it's in the background, but not necessarily we're conscious of that. But it's a nice idea that I'm going to keep in mind. Um, yeah, you're making me think about it, but I hope I can find an answer for that. But in our studio, as you said, yes, we work with commercial clients, we work with cultural clients, and I think, yeah, well, that our work, and when I say our work, I have a partner. He's a German, and he works with me, and we have a team of designers. And I think that the work we do is defined by simplicity. Um, in my case, I think that simplicity, in a certain way, responds to the context where I live. No, I live in Lima, a city that is growing rapidly, and where visual chaos, in a way, dominates our lives. Therefore, I can say that constant search that we have for simplicity, or that I have for simplicity, is a way to stand out, is a way to draw attention, no, from that chaos that we live in. On the other hand, I heard the interview of Karel Martens, the one you did the other day. He's a designer that I really admire. And he said in his interview that one of our challenges as designer is to make people discover. And I think that simplicity generates that curiosity, is a mechanism to discover. So if you try to say everything through your work, that surprise elements can disappear. So I think it's interesting, the idea of simplicity in the work we do. And it's something that we want to maintain. And of course, the idea of humanity is something that we're going to rethink and see if I could get back to you and have an answer, a more clear answer for that.
Well, I hope you will let us know. But
Yeah.
you and your partner and the rest of the designer in the studio, when you approach a new project, how it works? Like, is always like almost the same the process, or you always or you change? Because, for example, as we said, you have cultural clients, commercial clients, or I don't know, artistic clients.
Mm-hmm.
So every time is a bit different the approach. Of course, it's different, not always the same, but like the general letter, let's say?
Yeah. We have a process, as you said, uh, with commercial clients, the process is a little bit more complex than the cultural clients. But at the end of the day, we use a process in all our projects. And I think that the process, the design process, is at the end of the day equally important than the final product. Uh, I've heard in the different interviews that you've done that there are like different points of view regarding the process in the work of the different designers. But for me, I really love the design process. I love to see how the process leads you to the generation of ideas and different solutions through imagination, through thinking, writing, drawing, cutting, tasting, talking, and sharing with your team. Um, the success of the final product and the relation at the end of the day with a client is thanks to a good design process. And something that we were talking before starting the interview, something that I really miss working from home these days is the interaction, is the sharing with the rest of my team. I really feel alone, very alone, and I think that to answer finally this question, I think that design is a process. Therefore, you cannot ignore the process, no, and forgive the redundancy. But that's what I think about this question.
And you said that today, I mean, especially for the reason of the virus, we are smart working, so by home, there's no interaction, but is somehow what we are doing today, except the virus, no? What do you think about like the contemporary design? Do you think is going in the direction of less interaction, or how do you see the contemporary design comparing when you studied?
Well, things have changed, definitely. And contemporary design, it's what's happening now, no? Contemporary design is today, contemporary design is also the future. And the future, in a way, is technology. So technology, what technology has done? Technology has molded contemporary design in a way, has changed the design world. No, in some cases for good, in some cases not so good. Technology has opened new communication possibilities. Technology is pushing us to work in different ways. No, and especially is a big challenge today. So I think that the main difference from the time that I studied today is technology. I remember when I used to study at RISD, everything was done by hand, and we had, I think it was 1 or 2 computers that all the school could use to do part of the assignments. So really, perhaps the biggest element that has changed from that time till today is technology. And that technology is changing definitely our way of thinking and working.
And graphically talking, like, do you appreciate the contemporary way of design? Like that, for example, there's no more styles related to the territory. So there's no like Swiss design or Dutch style and so on.
Yeah, I'm not sure well, you are mentioning it. I'm not sure if I could make the comparison between contemporary design and modern design. But if I could, I would really say that I feel more comfortable with a modern design style. I prefer the classy look over that trendy tech look that technology is bringing to some of the work, because you cannot generalize, but a lot of work is looking very techy, no? So I'm more into the other style. I like more the classic style of design, definitely.
You mentioned before the technology, and one of the thing of technology is internet, of course, that changed the way to design and also the designers. And for example, in a studio, I think it's not anymore needed like just a website, but you also need, for example, an Instagram account and so on. So do you think the impact of internet had on design changed also the perspective of a studio, or, or not?
Yes, definitely. Internet has a big impact on design and on what we do as a studio. Internet is transforming design and the perception of design, whether you like it or not. No, that's a reality. Uh, what is happening today, no, for example, this discussion that we're having on design is thanks to the impact of internet. No, you're in Milan, I'm in Lima. We've met through Instagram. So I think that's a positive impact. Another positive impact of internet is, for example, the possibility of doing workshops online in this moment. The other day, I participated in a workshop organized by Patrick Thomas, for example. Internet gives you possibility to access to information. It gives you possibilities of communicating. So if that's the case, I would say that internet is great. One thing, yeah, definitely here what I've answered are like more generalized ideas of internet. As a studio, yeah, each day we're trying to be more techy, which is difficult when your education not necessarily has been a techy one. But yes, we're trying to be more involved in social media, and trying to understand also how this social media works and how you can benefit of that.
But don't you think, like, for example, the internet, and I always use the example of Instagram, but brought up like a lot of kind of designers that they maybe didn't study, or like yeah, they just learned by themselves the programs, and they think they're doing design but somehow they are not doing. And so like uploading all the content like they are at the same level of a professional studio. That
Yeah, well, that's also a reality. No, that's something that is happening, and I think that we as designers and hopefully people, possible clients, have the capacity to recognize good design. No, yeah, it's a tricky question, because yes, we live with all that information. We have access to all that information. But the important thing is really trying to to defer and to identify what is good and what is not good.
And in your studio, you have different designers, except you and your partner, and you probably see different designers during the time you were leading the studio. Do you see a development or a change in the approach of young generations comparing with the past?
Yeah. No, yes, the young generation is it's more technology oriented, and one thing that I think it's missing is that these young designers are not necessarily thinking by hand and working by hand. I think that what they do is they go directly to the computer and they think that the computer is going to solve in a way their design problems. And we think that, and we are formed using paper, using pencil, and thinking, no, with those instruments before going to the computer. So yes, what I think is a very big difference between myself and a young designer perhaps is that the way of working, the way of approaching to design, and the emphasis that they put in technology versus what I put in technology. I'm not sure if I've answered your question.
I think it's really interesting and brought me to make you an extra question, which is like, but don't you think that no matter how I go to the final point, so the outcome, like I can do directly on the computer and design, or I mean, I'm on your side, and I agree that we should like start with a pencil and a blank page, but maybe also the time is changed somehow, and so maybe it's not wrong to start from the computer, you know?
No, yeah, I don't think it's wrong necessarily. I think it's different ways of approaching design. I don't think, yeah, and as you say, it's we're in different moments. This new designers study with a computer from the beginning. So the reality is that. But on the other hand, I think that the way we learned, to think and approach design is something that we need to maintain. So that's something that we try to do in our studio. We try to tell young designers that come to work with us that please leave the computer, move to another place in the office and think in a white paper. So that's something we try to do, and that's something that, but we recognize it's difficult. It's difficult for these young designers to do that because they haven't been accustomed to that and they don't work that way. But that's something that perhaps we can bring to them and show them how to do it, no? And show them the relevance and the importance of thinking outside the computer.
And do you think how the approach of the designer changed? Also, in parallel, the role of the designer changed, right? So, what you especially before you mentioned a lot like technology, how it changed the role of the designer. So, where do you see the designer in the future? In the same like way is today, or more, for example, independent, or like more on generating content and less translator? I don't know if this was clear.
No, yeah, you're clear. I'm not sure exactly uh, what kind of role the designer will have in the future, but what I think is that designers need to be capable to adapt to new realities. Designers need to find ways to stay relevant in time, uh, especially, well, in moments like this. Um, they need to create initiatives or relevant initiatives to and collaborate with clients. So if we want to be more complex or think in a bigger way, I'm not sure if this is happening in other countries, but at least in Peru, it doesn't work this way. I think that, or the question that I do myself is why we can't think that designers can be part of, for example, board meetings, no, and can plan, influence, generate ideas, add value together with their clients in big business decisions. So, for example, that can be a new role for designers in the future, to have a much more active participation in the businesses of clients. So that could be something interesting too. No, for example, designers could also be much more involved in the well-being, in the quality of life of people. No, well, that's more like social design, but that's also a possibility. No, that's I think that's my answer.
And regarding the, well, we arrived to the last question, but regarding this social design, this way to design for people, do you think the designer today can do something for this moment, for this global pandemic? I mean, of course, not medically, but
Mm-hmm.
in some other ways.
Yeah, so yes, I think that we both agree that design will not solve this global pandemic. That's definitely and clear. But I think that we as designers have the opportunity to reach and touch people in different ways. Um, we have the opportunity to communicate from our houses because we're all in a way, well, we are all in our houses today. We can communicate love and hope with clear graphics and messages through the digital platform. So that's perhaps the what we can do. No, we can be in going back to your first or your second question. I think that we can be more human in this moment. So humanity, in a way, would be something interesting to explore in these difficult times.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think it's interesting to think in this direction also because now we are seeing a lot of different new ideas coming in this moment of global pandemic, and maybe could also be
Mm-hmm.
a moment where we take a bit of our time to and spend a bit of our time to to think how we can change things afterwards when this will end.
Yeah, this is something that we are doing. At least my partner and myself were doing that. We're working on that. We're thinking on what initiatives we can we take towards our clients, towards society. It's not an easy task. It's difficult. We're thinking and thinking, and we're doing like brainstorm ideas. But I think yes, we have an opportunity to really generate and think outside of that box that we have been accustomed to be. No, we've been in a safe zone, and today we are completely exposed to something new. And I think that gives all of us an opportunity to do something new that can really reach people and change the way of thinking, the way of being, the way of living. So yes, I think that we as designers have a responsibility in a way, and we can really touch people with those ideas.
Well, thank you very much, Veronica. It was nice to talk with you, and thank you for your point of views on different topics we touched.
And no, thank you, Mario. I really think that what you're doing is a great initiative. And I really thank you for this opportunity. And good luck.
Yeah, thank you, and
Bye bye. Take care. Take care.